Another statistic from the poll that will segue into our next segment about Democrats in disarray.
I'm ready.
67% of people said the Democratic Party is out of touch with Americans. That is slightly more than said Republicans were out of touch with Americans, and more than said Donald Trump was out of touch with Americans. So if you rank them, it would be Democrats were the worst, then Republicans, then Trump.
And I think I agree with that.
You think Democrats are more out of touch with Americans than Republicans?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Something to say.
Go ahead.
No, it's not about policy. It's about, look, I'll tell you one reason I think we've lost everywhere. Now, Republicans may not be offering solutions that will actually help people, but they have figured out a language to talk to people that resonates with them.
The Republican Party has.
The Republican Party, absolutely.
I think
we have no governorship.
Here's what I'm saying.
They have 33 governorships. They have all the state legislatures. They have all the branches of government. What are you talking about? Of course they're more in touch with regular people.
That means they win. That doesn't mean they're necessarily more in touch.
Well, I don't know what it means, but people are looking at a Democrat versus a Republican all across the country, and they're choosing the Republican.
Look, I'm saying that Democrats definitely are out of touch with people. The party has a problem. And clearly in the last race, people thought Donald Trump was more in touch than Hillary Clinton was. That's what swung the election. I don't know that I would think that Republicans are somehow more in touch with the American people than Democrats are. I don't believe that.
All I'm looking at is the fact that we are losing elections up and down the board everywhere.
Yeah, of course we are.
And there has to be a reason for that, because it's certainly not, we would not say that it's because Republicans are offering better policies. So clearly Republicans have a language for relating to people that is far more successful than what we have. Right? But what does it mean to lose elections? What does it mean to lose elections over and over again, other than the fact that we're out of touch? But it's not just gerrymandering, because we're losing at the state level, right? We're losing everywhere.
Well, how did Barack Obama win twice?
He's more in touch than Donald Trump, the Democratic Party, or the Republican Party.
Clearly, both parties have enormous problems.
Right.
Neither of them are liked. I think the status quo probably has a pretty big messaging problem. Period. Right.
For sure.
Getting tossed out, no matter what party you're in. You hate Washington. You're sick of what's been going on. I mean, this is sort of a lot of this conversation is predicated off a New York Times piece about a quote unity stop in Nebraska, where Democrats end up fighting over whether a mayoral candidate should be pro-choice or can be anti-choice in the Democratic Party.
Right.
Nationalizing municipal elections like that is always going to lead to ruptures like this.
Yeah.
Well, but hold on, though.
I want a better answer to the question than, it's one thing to say, yes, Democrats are losing up and down. Of course we are. We've had a horrible run from below the federal level, below the presidential level, right? But like, what policies do you think make Democrats more out of touch than Republicans?
That's a different question.
No, I guess that's the question I want to know.
Yeah, so,
I think the answer, Democrats are more out of touch than Republicans because Democrats are losing, thus they are more out of touch, is sort of a weird way out of that question.
Yeah, maybe begs the question. But I guess what I'd say is, so you know what I was thinking, that when I saw this, that 67% of Democrats, I tweeted about the fact that like we shouldn't ignore this number. This is a really important number.
Right.
And what was amazing to me is how everybody responded with their own personal explanation. Like, I got so many different reasons for what it means for Democrats to be out of touch. One reason is, we don't know how to talk to Trump voters. The other is we're enamored of the Hillary Clinton wing and we're not listening to the Bernie people. The other is that we're doing too much identity politics and it's alienating people, right? Like, or it's the neoliberals and they've taken over the party. Like, every explanation has been offered. And I think my response is like, yes, like those are all the reasons that the policy options that we're offering people.
But some of those are very contradictory. What I guess all I'm trying to say here is, at some point, this party or the people who make up this party have to come to a conclusion about what we need to say and believe going forward, and what we do say and believe going forward, and what issues we believe in. And like, I feel like we have been focused so much on personalities. There's this Bernie versus Hillary fight, and not enough on like the issues and the values that we believe as a party. It's like, it was easier when the party was divided back in the in 05 and 06. It was like over whether you supported or didn't support the Iraq War, which did become this overmagnified thing. But like, at least that was a war. Like, you were either for or against a war. It was an issue. You could be on one side or the other. Right now, it is even hard to figure out what it is we're arguing about. Because like you said the Democrats are out of touch, and you got a million different answers about why. Many of them contradictory. It's not all true. It's too much identity politics, or Bernie Sanders like there's a whole bunch of people criticizing Bernie, right? So it's like,
I would say no, but this is where I come down, that the Bernie critique of the Democratic Party is accurate, that the party doesn't sound enough like it's fighting for working people, and he has a language for how to do that. And so there's a language question, right? That's part of the reason we're out of touch.
That's a language question, not a policy question.
But as part of that, there's also a deeper policy question that I think is represented by that feud, that is sometimes represented in that divide, but not always. It's sort of a connected but different, distinct fight, right? Like, so, affordable college or single payer, right? These are fights that are linked to that conversation about fighting for the the working class. But there's a world in which Tom Perez could sound just as tough on the wealthy in this country, but embrace a more moderate agenda, right? There's a world in which that could kind of be one way to bridge the divide. So I think that these fights are all connected. By the way, on the identity politics fight, like, I think that's part of it. So people like, oh, you know, that the Hillary Clinton campaign was fought too much on love Trump's hate and social issues, but and that Bernie doesn't care about those issues. Well, I don't believe that divide is actually there. I think that there's a way in which we don't need to say that talking about sexism and talking about feminism and talking about trans rights and talking about gay rights and all the rest and choice has to mean that we can't also be a party that's like very working class focused. Like, I think we can do both of those things.
So when you say we're out of touch, you believe that it is the language that we're using, or like what about us is like, of all the explanations you got, what do you believe the answer is for why we're out of touch?
I think that the Bernie critique is largely correct, that the Democratic Party has lost touch with a language and set of policies that are simple, easy to digest, and that people understand are for them. That's my sort of view.
But what about his policies? Like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is Bernie and Hillary argued over a $12 minimum wage versus a $15 minimum wage. They argued about a public option on the road to maybe Medicare for all versus Medicare for all, right? And so it's like, do you think that these issue debates are the salient debates in the party, or do you think it is a question of how we speak, what we emphasize when we're out there, message, whatever? Because I think it's an interesting question.
I think, I'm not sure, but I do think that the reason Hillary Clinton, this is why it's hard to articulate, I think the reason Hillary Clinton felt that in order to appeal to Bernie voters while still maintaining whatever her seriousness and responsibility was, that she had to take Bernie's $15 minimum wage and put it through a machine that came out as a $12 minimum wage where states could go up to 15, blah, 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 where we take the Bernie proposal on college and then put it through the kind of Democratic think tank machine, and what comes out of the other end is a much more complicated but less expensive version. Like, that policy apparatus, I think, is broken because it's built for a kind of governing majority. Like, it means that what pumps out of the Democratic institutions are these kind of feel like they've already been through a budget reconciliation process, because a lot of these are institutions that were built around governing, whether they came out during the Clinton administration or a lot of these are people that were policy experts that came up during the Obama administration. And I think a party in the wilderness and a party that is trying to show people that will fight for them is a party that should embrace big, simple ideas that don't necessarily always need to be practical, and that say to people, like, we're going to go really hard and we're not going to worry about what the donors think. We're not going to worry about what the wealthy, moderate backers of the party think. We're going to fight for working people, for big programs that you will see personal benefits from easily, that aren't a crazy, means-tested, complicated, jury-rigged tax code.
Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick a date on the calendar, and we're going to stop relitigating the primary in the frame of Bernie versus Hillary. Because that's not how we viewed politics or the Democratic Party at all until very recently. And we're going to stop relitigating whether it was friggin' Jim Comey that lost the election for us, or whether the media is to blame, or whether it was Hillary's staff and not going to Wisconsin. We're going to figure out, what do we care about most? What do we stand for? What are our values? And we're going to talk about that every day from now on. Like, this is a valuable conversation to have, but like the conversation that's happening on Twitter between like the Hillary people and the Bernie bros and the reporters taking them out of context is like toxic. It's infuriating. It's turning off everybody.
Drives me nuts. Well, Lovett, I'm glad that we got into this here, because I think what started setting me off about your initial response to the question was, I am very, very tired. And I'm not saying you do this, but I'm very tired of people. They think that all they need to do, their only responsibility, is to take a shot at the Democratic Party being losers, and then we can like move on and say like, the Democratic establishment is horrible and I'm for changing the Democratic establishment, and that's it. And it's like, yeah, of course, it's easy to say that the Democratic Party has done pretty poorly over the last 8 years, aside from the presidential level. I think the much harder challenge is figuring out how we get back to winning, what policies we stand for, what values we talk about, and how we talk about what we want to do. And I don't think that either one of the sides has all the answers to that.
For sure. I totally agree with that.
I do think we are, and I know our party, and I know what we believe in, and we are way more in touch with what more Americans want than Republicans.
Of course. That goes without saying. I guess that's why this is so important. And we should not be relitigating 2016. It's an incredibly stupid conversation. All the answers are right. Hillary wasn't a good candidate. Comey was a terrible influence on the election. There was a policy problem. There was a media. Every answer. There was sexism. racism. All of it's true. So we don't need to have that conversation. But the divide between the Bernie wing and the kind of Tom Perez wing now, whatever, the establishment of the party is a real one and an important one. And for me, like, all that I'm trying to figure out and think through, and I don't have all the answers at all. I don't know exactly what to do. But I agree that, like, as a party, we are more in touch. We have better policies. I don't think that the best policies, I don't think we've solved all the answers, but like, we're a better party, but we're losing. And I think we need to ask ourselves why. And it's a really important question. And the one thing I do see is that Bernie at least has a theory of the case. He's the only person out there like, this is a direction you can go. Try this.
Yeah, I can't get past the fact that we put forward a candidate in the last election who was the standard bearer for our party that was largely perceived as out of touch for a variety of reasons, you know, fair and unfair. And this poll, while we have a lot of work to do, is probably a big legacy of that.
The thing that I will think about that video, so the Chris Hayes video where Bernie says we should go after the billionaires and the millionaires, and then Tom Perez refuses to agree. I'll think about that video for a while, not because I think Tom Perez is going to be a great chair of the DNC, but because Tom Perez didn't seem like he had the words. Like, he didn't have a language for how to talk about these issues in a way that could appeal to Bernie people, but without giving up on the kind of larger coalition that the Democrats need to have. And like, that to me is the problem.
Well,
and that's what I'm thinking about.
Because what Tom Perez in that video, we talked about this, Lovett, but what Bernie should have said, or what I would have agreed with, is saying the ruling class in this country has not passed policies or helped push for policies that would help working people. And it's bad that they have done that. What Bernie said is the ruling class's greed has destroyed America, you know? And I think that, like, Tom Perez, that probably caught Tom Perez off guard. And he said, I disagree with that. But he didn't want to disagree with it because he was too afraid, because now he's in this position where he's afraid of everything and he's going to be cautious. So he gives some namby-pamby language about, like, hope on the ballot, which was sounded absurd.
Right. I feel like he got stuck, right? He got stuck and he didn't handle it well.
But because people are so afraid to say that Bernie's language might be a little too hot sometimes.
Right.
Terrified of that, because then the base goes crazy.
And it's not even the base. It's like, it's Twitter folks who, you know, want to keep relitigating this primary and feel very aggrieved by it. There's absolutely a need to improve the conversation and the language we use. But I also think there's this very small minority that's very loud and still very pissed about this primary that will, like, chop you down the minute you say anything that goes against what Bernie says or stands for. And I think that's toxic as well.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. I'm just open to anything because we are in such dire straits. Yeah, Donald Trump is president. We've lost the country. So how do we solve it?
Yep, for sure. Soul searching is required.
And there's a lot on our side, and we have the better argument, so we should figure out a way to fucking make it, you know?